All right. So good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from today. Welcome to today's informative Friday session, Beyond the Basics, discovering untapped features in Infor mobile supply chain management, being presented today by Casey Birch. My name is Molly Velasco. I'll be helping moderate the session today. Please be aware that the session is being recorded. As always, quick logistical information before we get started. Please use the chat feature to ask any questions throughout the presentation, and we'll be sure to address them. There will be a Q&A session at the end where you can come off mute and ask questions, but we ask that you use the chat feature for questions during the presentation. As always, we highly encourage you to take advantage of the time with our consultant today and ask questions and interact. I know last week's session when we opened up the Q&A, it was a great session because clients came off, asked their questions, and actually interacted and shared with how they do different things within their organization. So would love if we saw that today too. Please make use of that time to just have that interaction. A copy of the presentation and a link to the recording will be sent to all the registrants. If you're not a registrant, you would like a copy, please send me, Molly Velasco, an email, and I will include you on the distribution. And I will drop my email in the chat soon so that you have it. Hopefully you are a little bit familiar with Nordic and Nordic ERP services. If not, I just wanted to give a brief background on who we are and what we do. So Nordic provides a broad range of consulting services, including strategic advisory, digital and cloud initiatives, implementation and support, as well as managed services. In partnership with our clients, we help solve complex IT challenges to help make technology more useful and more beneficial to your business. So if you are thinking about moving to the cloud, or if you're going through an ERP selection process, Nordic Advisory Service offers unbiased ERP reviews and selection services. We can help you identify the benefits of moving to a cloud ERP solution, manage the selection process, and measure the results. If you have already made the decision to move to the cloud, Nordic's prescriptive implementation process will ensure you follow a best practice approach to get the most out of your software for the least costs and in the quickest amount of time. And then for those organizations that have already made the move to the cloud, at about 6 months after go live and every year thereafter, we recommend that you have Nordic perform an optimization assessment just to make sure that you've realized the value of the implementation and you're taking advantage of those new features that are being added. So no matter where you are in your ERP journey, Nordic is there for you. We encourage you to reach out to one of our solution experts via our website, or you can shoot me, Molly, an email, and I can get you in touch with someone as well. So just quick disclaimer, and then we will move into today's presentation. The material in this presentation is in reference to Infor Cloud Suite and is for informational purposes only. We just want to provide you with considerations as you make the best decision for your organization. Reliance on the information presented without consultation is at your own risk, and we highly recommend that you contact Nordic to discuss how solutions can be tailored specifically to your needs. So with that, I will turn it over to today's presenter, Casey, who is a solutions architect for our supply chain team. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you so much for that introduction. Yes, I am Casey Birch. I am a supply chain solutions architect here at Nordic. I have been with the organization for a little over 8 years now. And something I like to do when I meet new clients, I ask them, hey, what is the last thing you bought off Amazon? Because I think you can get like a lot of, fun information about people knowing what they just bought.
Oh, no.
And so I decided today I'm going to tell you guys what I most recently purchased off Amazon, like what just hit my front door. And it was an assortment of different colored gold and yellow and black and white balloons, because I was telling Molly, it is soccer season for us here in the Midwest, and we have a parade tomorrow morning, and I love to do a balloon arch for my kids for their parade. So tonight I will be sitting with these balloons, blowing them all up to prepare for a parade in the morning. So that was my most recent purchase. But that is not why you guys are here. You guys are here to learn about these untapped features or underutilized features of MSCM. So we all know that mobile supply chain in Landmark is on the horizon, which we are all very excited for. I am super excited for. But if you're a client that's been live on MSCM or FSM for a while, we don't want our clients to miss out on functionality that is available and ready to use now. So some of the features that I'm going to discuss today have been introduced over the last few years of releases, but maybe fell under the radar, or maybe you did know of that release or that enhancement, but maybe particularly didn't have the bandwidth within your organization to implement at that time. I realized some of these features hadn't even been adopted or used with some of our clients because of questions we have received here at Nordic from our managed services. So I thought this would be just a great presentation to cover some of this low-hanging fruit functionality that can really benefit organizations that use mobile supply chain in the Infor community. Okay. So first today, I'm going to cover a high level what's included in MSCM. I think it is nice just to do a recap of all the different areas. Then, of course, I'm going to hit on each of those hidden gems that I think deserve some special attention. And now this presentation is focused around the hard-coded MSCM. I think that's kind of what they're referring to it as, the older version. So hopefully if you enjoy this presentation, please stay tuned for future presentations around MSCM and Landmark that are coming, okay? So with that, let's get started. So some of the key, well, MSCM is broken out into a couple different areas. Receiving and delivery, also we all call RAD. Mobile par and cycle counting, we call it MPC, and then point of use. So a couple of the key components I just want to cover of RAD, okay, as a refresher probably for everybody, is first package receiving. So what is covered under package receiving is dock logging. So that is the component, if you're not aware, to validate that the carrier tracking numbers on packages that are delivered match the tracking number on the carrier's manifest, right, as they're taking them off the truck. And you're also able to record the exact time these packages are arriving, right? And this is going to allow your organization to identify those discrepancies quickly before, your drivers even left the location. And just so you know, dock logging, that is a completely optional piece to do. You do not have to implement dock logging to continue with the other package and receiving options. Next under package receiving is miscellaneous receiving. So these are our non-PO receipts. Okay, so materials management, I'm sure everybody on this call can agree, has had to deliver items that have not been purchased through the normal rec to PO process. Okay, so this component can record the receipt when there isn't an FSM PO number. And so you can see what you can track when it arrived, where it should be delivered, who sent it. And this is going to give your management team some empirical data on the volume of these miscellaneous goods arriving to the company, right? Because that is timely. It is time consuming. And so these can be included in productivity reporting. So, and then the last piece to package receiving is PO receiving, right? The most popular probably piece to that. And that is using this component to record the receipt for which an FSM purchase order exists, okay? Then we move into delivery management, another component of RAD. So we use this component to record delivery information to track shipments, again, from the time they enter the receiving area to the time they're delivered to their final destination. This is where you capture signatures, whether or not that was a PO receipt, a miscellaneous receipt, or a shipment maybe for stock items that were picked from your warehouse. Under delivery, you also can manage delivery routes, your configuration for signature and image capture, and badge scanning. Then we move into inventory transactions. So you can perform, I don't want to say all, but I might be safe saying all, but several types of inventory transactions that you complete in FSM you can also directly complete on the handheld. So I'm talking, you can issue, we can do returns, we can do adjustments, we can do transfers, right? All of that done through inventory transactions on the handheld. And next we move into tracking. So to me, this is like that age-old question, where did my package go? Who signed for it, right? And we can use the tracking component to locate items that need to be delivered. So you can let the entire organization track the status of those goods. So, obviously Infor is hoping this eliminates those unnecessary phone calls and help provide full visibility into that delivery process. Okay. Then we move on to picking, kind of the last area in RAD. So we use that picking component to download shipments that get generated out of FSM to mobile supply chain to perform requisition-based picking. So this component is going to update the shipment status on the MSCM server and then shoots it over to FSM, and then it generates the appropriate delivery labels and documents. So that's RAD in a nutshell. And then if we move into MPC, PAR counting, right? A big one. PAR counting is going to be the process of counting those items in a PAR location for the purpose of replenishing those items. So when you replenish those items stored at that location, they're going to, obviously get replenished to whatever that predefined PAR level or if, that maximum supply quantity that you have designated. You can also do inventory replenishment. So you can replenish your perpetual inventory via the requisition process if you choose on the handheld. We also put cycle counting under MPC. So this is going to be the process of counting. Hopefully everybody has done this at least once a year in their system, but is the process of counting a subset of inventory items on a schedule throughout the year to verify and update those inventory levels. And the last area in MPC is pick for par. So this is a term used to describe picking items from an inventory location based on the par count. So if your par location, and this is an MSCM specific setup, is set as a pick for par type, then items on that par that are replenished from your inventory location will be available for picking using your pick for par module. So it is a different menu option on the handheld. So these items are available immediately rather than waiting for the pick list to generate a shipment to be pulled. Okay, so that is pick for par. Now, there are other areas I'm going to mention, but they, are not going to be our focus today, which is point of use nursing. This is the clinical side interface for managing supply usage at the bedside. And then we have point of use department, or I should say under mobile supply chain umbrella, there's point of use department, which is going to define areas where those point of use activities, such as usage and replenishment, occur. Okay. So that was supposed to be my super quick overview of all the areas. So I hope I didn't talk too fast, but I really want to get into the three exciting enhancements that Infor has introduced. So that's just, again, a quick recap of the areas. And we'll be spending actually all three of the features I want to highlight today. All will be included in the RAD module. Okay, our first one. So our first one up, which I love, cluster picking. So in Infor mobile supply chain management, cluster picking is the warehouse picking strategy where a worker is going to pick items for multiple orders at the same time in a single picking run. Okay. So this is going to be done in Infor by grouping, or as the name implies, clustering several orders together based off their requesting location. And this is going to help improve the efficiency of travel time. So when I personally think about cluster picking, I envision my local Kroger, because I'm in the Midwest and Kroger is king here. So that's where we do most of our shopping. So I see a Kroger employee walking around with their multi-level cart with a bunch of shopping bags, right? We're both down the peanut butter aisle and they're pulling the same or similar items for several different orders at once. Okay. They are not walking the entire Kroger store to pull one click list order. Okay. They're picking several orders at one time. So similarly, in a hospital, you probably have PAR counters that count 3 different PAR location departments, right? One after the other, boom, boom, boom. And they all may have similar items. So when they go down into the warehouse, instead of picking one order at a time to refill those supply areas, the technician would pick all the items in one route, placing items in their designated totes for each department. Okay. So essentially now with cluster picking, you can reduce that walking time around the warehouse with your mobile device to guide you where to go, what to pick, and increasing your productivity. Okay. Well, and okay, so I know what you're saying is like, Casey, that sounds amazing. Okay. How do I set it up? And I think the setup is super simple. So, and we're going to go over that. So, first things first is that in the setup, you have to group your requesting locations together called clusters. Okay. So the first step is to build your clusters out and start identifying those groups of requesting locations that kind of should get picked or pulled together. Then once that setup is complete, we will, or the organization will submit requisitions, right, for each of these requesting locations in that cluster. And then in the background, you're running that warehouse pick list print job to generate our shipments. And then you go and pick those clusters using the handheld. So what we are going to do is get into that demo. So I'm going to show you guys what this looks like. So we're going to go over the setup, and I'm going to share with you how that looks on the handheld. So I am going to go into I'm going to log into Infor Mingle, and we are first going to review this setup. We need to open up our mobile supply chain management application. Okay, so I've got MSCM up. All right, and you are going to go under receiving and delivery, picking, configuration, and we get to the configure picking for the handheld. And so we have an option here, print cluster picking document. Okay, so you can determine if you want the delivery label and or delivery document to print out for every cluster picking done on a handheld. So if you click this little pencil icon, it opens up that specific configuration here, and you can see all of your companies and locations set up. And you decide right here, right? I want the delivery label to print for all these locations. I want the delivery document to print for all these locations. If you want to change, and this is just an extra tidbit, I'm sure people know this, right? But if you want a different location to function a different way, like let's say in this particular inventory location, I don't need to worry about a delivery document. I just care about the label. You'll just uncheck the inherit checkbox, and then you have the ability to update that particular location. Okay. So if you make any changes, just make sure you click save. So that's the first thing we want to look at in the setup is what are you going to be printing and what do you want to print? And then next is actually creating those clusters. So still under receiving delivery from the menu bar, under picking, and then down here to clusters. Okay. You get a couple different tabs of information. So the first one is create, right? So on this tab, we are going to create new clusters. Under modify, this is where you would update, as it would imply, existing clusters. You can also choose to view or print a certain cluster. So if you want to know, hey, do I have this requesting location already in a cluster, right? You can run this report to just view and check and see what cluster it's in. And then if you need to move it, you can. And then delete. Obviously, if there's one that's no longer applicable, you don't want it, to populate anywhere, you can delete. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify an existing cluster I have already created. So let's put in some parameters here so I can find it. All right, so in my inventory company in this particular location, I have built 4 different types of clusters, okay? And so, it automatically gives a cluster ID. So 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I identify the cluster name. So if I click modify, I can see what requesting locations exist in this cluster. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add an additional one. Let's say I added a new requesting location. Since this is my cath lab cluster, let's say we added a new rec loc in that area and in that department. And so I want to make sure I add it to that cluster to optimize my picking. So I'm going to do add, and I'm going to search for one. Okay. All right. And so once you search for, and obviously you can scroll through and find it, but I'm just picking a specific one. You'll get the list of any of the requesting locations in that company that you can add. So once I select it and scroll down and click add, you may or may not see this type of pop-up. So one or more of the selected items are already a part of an existing cluster. Move to this cluster instead. So I just wanted to make sure that I pointed out that a requesting location can only be included in one cluster. Okay, so this is a nice pop-up message to let you know, or do you want to move it, right? Because it's on a different one. So if you move it, it's going to move to this new one. So it is just like a 1-for-1 ratio here. So just so you're aware. All right. So now that is the setup, right? So we checked the one parameter we had about printing cluster picking delivery documents. And then I created this cluster in advance. So now what would happen, right, is that your organization would submit requisitions. So I have already done this so that nobody had to see or wait for these things to happen. I have submitted requisitions for several of these requesting locations, okay? And your organization would have the warehouse pick list print job running. So I have also already run that job. So just fast forward that, hey, all these requisitions came in. I went and picked, I went and counted a bunch of these pars. I ran warehouse pick list print and I generated my shipments. Now I am ready to go to the handheld and look and see how this looks, how the process looks different than picking in the past. Okay. So let's go ahead and share my handy dandy mobile device. Okay, so here's my MSCM device here. And I am going to click into RAD, of course. Okay, and then I go down to picking. Right, and normally this is a normal screen. Anybody that is picking, requisitions with the handheld, here's a list of all my shipments I need to do. And look, I am very behind. Oh my goodness. So I just want to scroll down to the very bottom because the shipments at the bottom are, my requisitions, I have 3 different requisitions here for 3 different requesting locations, all included in my cluster. So in a normal day, I would just go and select all 3 of those, right, and download them and pick them one by one. However, if you come up here to the ellipsis and select clusters, it will open up all the clusters you have for the inventory company and location that we viewed inside the MSCM setup. So there is cluster 2, 3, 4, and 5 that we saw earlier. And I can see I have got 3 shipments sitting in this cluster. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select it, download it. Okay, cluster 5, 3 recs. Okay, so I've opened up this cluster. So what I want to show you here is I have shipment 409, okay, and I have item 10016. So I'm going to say, I'm going to go straight to that. I'm going to go straight to this shelf, grab my item, click next, and now it has jumped me to shipment 410, the exact same item 10016. Okay, so this is how I can pick for the same item or similar items, right? And I'm not staying within that same shipment. So here I've jumped to another shipment. So all 3 of my requisitions had the same item 10016, and I'm picking them all at once rather than picking, again, all the items on shipment 409, then all the items on shipment 410, and then 411. I am able to do this now with this guiding me, right, and telling me where to go. So now I'm back to shipment 409, okay, and I have a new item 10032. Okay. And I jumped shipments, same item. So you guys can see now how much more efficient this is for your pickers to do this. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish this out. Look at me, I'm so fast. Fastest picker out there. Look at me, boom, boom, boom. Almost there. And probably should pick less items. That's okay. All right. So I've done all my picking. So I am going to click done. And I'm going to send it off. Okay, perfect. There's my shipment 409, 410, 411. Okay, so what I want to show you now in MSCM, there is a cluster report. So let's go take a look back in the desktop app, what we can see from mobile supply chain. So back over in my mobile supply chain application, I am going to go, again, I'm just going to be consistent, receiving and delivery, receiving, picking, and view and search. So if you see this, there is a cluster picking tab now available. So if I click the cluster picking tab, I can put in my parameters to see what has been done or double check it. And again, just update your parameters to find what you're looking for. But there it is. There is my cluster picking that I just completed with 3 shipments on today's date and who it was picked by. If I do view or print and open that up, I can see the shipment numbers that were included in this pick. Okay. Then, just because we can, I'm going to show you back in FSM. Okay, I've got warehouse up. Here are all 3 of my shipments, 409, 410, 411, that were sitting in printed status. And as I would expect, they all moved to closed because I picked all 3 of them at one time. Okay, so awesome. I love this one. To me, I'm like, this is a no-brainer. But I just don't think some clients knew about it or knew how to implement it. So hopefully this was a good one for everyone on the call. Okay, I'm going to move right along because I am watching the time and I tend to talk a lot. So let's get to number 2. Next one, packing slip scanning. Okay, so most organizations, I imagine, have a requirement to capture that physical packing slip somewhere, right? So it could be that it gets stored, right, in a filing cabinet somewhere, or it needs to get stored electronically somewhere, right? So I've worked with clients that scan it in through a third-party system. It gets loaded maybe through an interface of some sort into FSM. I've also had clients actually go and physically add the packing slip as a comment to a PO to store it. So I'm sure, everybody on this call probably has other ways, right, that you somehow get that packing slip into FSM. But Infor has introduced the ability to scan that packing slip during the PO receiving process, and then it's visible not only in MSCM, right, because you scanned it with the MSCM device, but it also attaches to the receipt as a comment inside FSM. So that is what I'm going to show you next. So again, I just want to cover, I think the setup and processing is pretty simple for this feature. So we first want to make sure that the packing slip is enabled in MSCM configuration. There was a new parameter created for this when it was introduced. Okay, so we need to make sure that's turned on. And then all we have to do is go and receive a PO on the handheld, and we are going to capture that image. Okay, so with that, let's do our demo. So back into the desktop app, we need to validate our setup. So, like I said, I think all 3 of these have to do with mobile or with receiving and delivery. So under receiving and delivery, under receiving, under configuration, okay? And then we're going to click the PO receipts tab. And if I scroll down to the bottom of the configurable settings, I see packing slip. So that's new. And when I open this up, so the first thing we have to do is make sure this is toggled on. This is what's going to enable the packing slip option to be visible on the handheld, okay? Or to even be visible on the handheld. So this enables it. Then you make 2 different decisions. Do you want to display the packing slip for certain companies, right? So you may enable this, but only want to do it for one company inside your organization or one location inside your organization, right? It is flexible in that aspect. And then you could decide, do you want to even make it required, right? Should this be a requirement that they have to attach that packing slip when they do the PO receiving process, okay? So again, after you've either enabled this or made your display settings, go ahead and click save if you've made any changes, okay? Then we're ready, right? We're ready to go and receive on the handheld and see what this looks like. So I'm going to open back up my mobile supply chain device here. And get out that. And I'm going to go into receiving. Oh, here we go. I'm going to go into receiving. Okay. And this is just normal, right? Like everybody's familiar with the receiving screens on the handheld. So I've got a PO number here. Let's see here, 1901816. Next. And now, again, based off of your setup, right, there's obviously a lot of configuration screens when it comes to receiving. This may look different than what you have, right? You may have required fields that I don't have required, or you may have hidden fields that I don't have hidden, or vice versa, right? But for the most part, this is where the PO receiving screen start. So what I want to point out, right, is this new section here, packing slip. So we have two options, right? And so packing slip, you wouldn't see that if you didn't toggle that feature on, okay? So if you're not seeing it now, that is why, because that must be toggled off. But packing slip, we have two options. Take a photo, which is exactly what it sounds like, right? I am taking a picture of that packing slip as we sit here, right? And I'm uploading it, that image. Excuse me, it's uploading that image. The other option, upload image, you would use that if you were scanning like a QR code that was provided from the vendor to pull up an image of a packing slip. Then you take a screen grab from your mobile device, which would then save to your photo library. That is when you use the upload image because it's grabbing an image from your photo library. Okay, so I am going to show this. So I'm going to take a photo. You can see I got a nice packing slip here from my Etsy order. So there you go. All right, so I simply took an image of my packing slip if I was receiving in the dock, and there is my scanned image. Okay. And then I just keep moving throughout the process, right? I just continue to perform the normal, PO receiving that I do. So I'm going to click PO lines here. I am going to receive that one. I just had one item on this PO, so I was better about that. And then I'm going to send it. Okay, and I get that nice confirmation, PO receipt successfully sent to the server. Now we're not done, right? I would like to show you now where that packing slip lives. Oh, it keeps jumping right there. Inside MSCM. Okay, so we are going to stay under receiving and delivery, under receiving, and then PO receipts. And I'm going to, obviously you can fill in whatever parameters you like. I'm going to go ahead and specifically pick the PO that we just looked at and search. And there it is. So today's date, yes, my PO 190816 released and processed. If I click view print from MSCM, I have right here, there is a new option here for packing slip with a view hyperlink. So if you click that, you will see that image that was captured during your PO receiving. Okay. And then I don't want to forget, right, is because the other piece to that is I told you it gets attached as a comment on your receipt. So let's go hop over to purchasing. I'm going to come here to receiving. And there is my PO receipt 1901816. If I open that up, there is now going to be a comment there. The comment title is going to be MSCM packing slip and this attachment, your image there. If I open that up, drag that over, voila, I see that packing slip, and others obviously within your organization, right, that have access to FSM can now see that packing slip if they ever need to go and validate anything. Okay. All right, that was packing slip scanning, and we head into our third one, our third exciting feature.
Hey, Casey.
Yeah.
I have a question back on the clustering.
Sure.
So their question was, how do you manage new requesting location creation and use the cluster feature?
Yeah, that's a good question. There would need to be an internal process, right? Because there's nothing that triggers to MSCM that a new requesting location was created, right, to add to your cluster. So that would need to be something built, right? When a new requesting location is added, part of that process flow needs to be a question, right? Like a part of your design map is, does this need added to an existing cluster in FSM? And then send that over, whoever your MSCM administrator is that would be responsible for managing those clusters, that communication would have to happen with them. Now, I'm sure a lot of that could also be done by a custom IPA, right, to do that. Especially as we move into Landmark, I'm sure there's like a lot more possibilities for, automatically adding new requesting locations to clusters. But right now, that process would just would have to happen per organization with communication, right, to who builds requesting locations and who manages those clusters.
Okay.
Any other questions?
One
Yeah,
more question on
sure.
the packing slip. So
Yeah.
regarding that, can you scan more than one document?
I want to say yes. I think I actually did that before. Yes, you can. You can continue to scan. Actually, I think I accidentally did it, probably prepping for this demo. I scanned two different documents and it attached two. So yes, I'm going to say the answer is yes. But if we get done with this or done with this presentation, this last one, I'm happy to go. I've got tons of POs. We could just test that out and make sure I can scan two. And I can be confident in that answer, but I want to say yes, I accidentally did attach two images when I did not mean to.
Okay,
Great
perfect.
questions.
And
I
that's
love
it
it.
for now.
Awesome. Thank you, Molly.
Yeah.
Thank you for the questions, team. Okay, our last but certainly not least highlight feature that I wanted to talk about today is two-step receiving. So while this is not specific to mobile supply chain, the other ones, were, pretty specific to mobile supply chain. I still thought this was a really nice feature to point out because it directly crosses over into MSCM. So what two-step receiving allows is the inventory location stock on hand will only be incremented from a PO receipt after a multi-step process is performed, okay? So first it gets received and the second step is put away, okay? Which what's happening in the background is like at this final release. So MSCM, now what I don't think when two-step receiving first was implemented, I'm just not sure if mobile supply chain was able to do this second piece, this put away piece, but it works now, right? So regardless if it did at the time, it does now. So MSCM, they allow you to go in and perform put away in the RAD module, which will that's confirming that I physically put this product in its bin location. So this process clearly was designed to account for that gap of time between the initial receipt of your product and the physical put away of that product in a bin, in a location of some sort, right? So in my past, I worked for a specialty retail company that was a business to consumer organization. So it was very, very common practice that we did pre-orders. We would put like all the latest and greatest product on our website for customers to pre-order before we ever physically received these goods. Okay. This, obviously it allowed for us to generate a lot of buzz and we could quickly tell like what products were going to be like most popular and, go back to the well as we called it to get more in. Um, but what this also did was create a large, large, large backlog of orders. Okay. So before these items even came through the door, we had already identified this item will go into this bin when it gets received. Okay. This item will go into this bin. Everything had a place on a shelf. Okay. So that when the items were received, the receivers knew what bin it went into. There was no question, right? And our pickers, when they're going to pick the order, they knew where to pick it from, right? That was all done in advance. So I think maybe you guys can like kind of see where I'm going with this is as soon as we physically receive that product, okay, the goods, were received into our warehouse, our shipments, our pickless print job ran, right? And our shipments were spitting off the printer left and right. And I can't even count how many times we had received in orders with thousands of products, but they did not make it to the bin and fast enough. Like we could not get them to the shelf fast enough that these pickers had to go and dig through boxes all over the warehouse floors to pull our orders to get them out to our customers. Okay. Because they weren't in their bin. We just didn't have time. So my organization would have benefited greatly from a two-step receiving process in my former life. Because those, shipments, they wouldn't have printed until that put away step was complete, right? We would have saved a lot of time in those pickers having to like pick off the floor. So that is what two-step receiving is. And MSCM, you can now do that put away. Because obviously we know we can receive POs in MSCM, of course, but performing that put away piece is key here. So to set this up, okay, we are actually going to go into FSM first because we have to confirm that the inventory location is set up for two-step receiving, okay? This is going to be enabled at the inventory location. So every PO receipt for an inventory item is going to follow this process, okay? It's not like per item or per PO, right? It's done at the inventory location level. Then we're going to go into MSCM RAD configurations. There are 3 new settings that involve two-step receiving that we need to make decisions on. And then we're simply going to go receive a PO and see what that put away piece looks like. So with that, you guessed it, we are going back into demo. So I am going to pull up the inventory location. Let's make sure. Okay. So when you open up your inventory location on the options tab, if you scroll down, there was a new flag added called two-step purchase order receiving. So you want to make sure that flag is enabled. Okay, that's the first step. Then we're going to go back into MSCM, and the other 3 parameters are over on the MSCM side. So we go to receiving and delivery, receiving, configuration, scroll up here to PO receipts. Okay. And there is, if I scroll down the bottom right here, put away, the one right above packing slip that we viewed earlier. So put away. So if I hit that little pencil icon, same or similar to what we saw with the former feature is that we do need to toggle this on. Okay, so if you want to allow for the put away process to be done on the handheld, you do have to toggle this feature on. Then we have the 3 configurable settings that we have to look at. First is item number validation. So do you want to have to validate the item number every time the user scans or manually enters the item, right? So you decide, yes or no. It's just a checkbox. So if you decide, yes, we want item number validation, select the checkbox and click save. Okay. The second setting is download put away order. So what order do you want it to appear right on the screen? Do you want your oldest records to appear at the top, or do you want your newest records to appear at the top? So same thing, you open this up and you just decide from the dropdown, do you want it to be FIFO or LIFO? And save if you made any changes. And then the last is put away all. So just like receive all, right? Same thing as put away all. If you have 100 items, 100 different items that need to get put away into bins, do you want to allow that receiver to, or whoever does your put away, to go ahead and just hit a button that puts away all, right? Or do you want to make them have to select each item for each bin or location? Okay, so that, again, similar to receive all, up to you. So if whatever changes you made, click save. And then we are ready to perform our standard receiving on the handheld. Before I do that, I just want to show you, because I have this ready and I think it's just important to show what it looks like before the transaction actually happens. So if I go, I have an item in a location that looks like it's on purchase order. So let's go back here and let me show you my item. And I think it was 10032 in my OR stores. So if I go to demand and supply, okay, I see a PO sitting out here, 190,817. So this looks like to me it's a PO waiting to be received. So this has not incremented my stock on hand yet. Okay, it's not been, from what I can see from the item location, it doesn't look like it's been received. Okay. However, if I go put on my purchasing hat and I go look at some fields, I come here, there's a tab here called pending two-step. Oh, did I receive it? Did I not? Oh, where's it at? PO? Uh-oh. Maybe that's not my demo. 1901817. Oh, maybe I just sent a bill. No. Oh, I didn't perform the first part of it. Hello. Okay, let me receive this really fast. Do a little create receive all here. Now, of course, we know I could be doing this with my handheld. 01817. And I'm going to release it. Okay. All right. So, okay, well, even better. I just received this PO. Okay. So if I come back here to my item location and I refresh this page, right? It didn't go away. Everyone just saw that I just created a receipt for this PO for this item, and it is still under my demand and supply tab. Okay. So now what I want to show, and I just didn't do it, which is actually even better for the demo. Now I have a PO sitting here. There it is, 190817 is released pending two-step receiving. So this tells me it's that, that put away process has not been performed. Okay. So that is where we are going to go into our handheld and perform the put away step. Okay. To complete this receipt. So let's go ahead and pull up my handheld. So I am still under PO receiving, but I'm not receiving this PO. I just did that, right? And I could have just done that with the handheld. I did an FSM, but if I tried to do this in the handheld, it would say, no, there's no PO with any open lines on there. If you click this ellipsis, because we enabled that toggle, we now have this option here, put away. I'm going to go ahead and select put away. It shows me how many POs are sitting here with items that were set for two-step receiving and have been received. So I'll go ahead and select that. Download it, open it up, and all you do is just toggle because it knows you received 5. You said you received 5. So did you put 5 away in that bin? Okay, so you would do this for every item and just toggle that over. And I would say done. Okay, I just had one little item on this PO, send it, and it says it's successfully been sent to the server. Okay, so now just to go full circle, if I come back over here to my MSCM application, I select receiving and delivery, receiving, PO receipts. There is a put away tab now appearing there. You can put in your parameters to look for the putaways that have been done. And I'm going to do search. And there it is, PO 190817, the put away has been complete. Okay, if I pop back over into FSM, I'll show you right here, as soon as I refresh this page, it removes itself from pending two-step receiving and it is now in the released section. Okay. So love this one too. Love all 3 of them. Okay, I couldn't tell you my favorite. I love them all. Maybe this one because it would have benefited me, like again, where I used to work. So I have PTSD, I think, from those orders. So, all right. So that was my presentation. Thank you all so much for taking the time to learn about some of these untapped or underutilized features from MSCM. And I really hope after this presentation you choose to implement one, if not all of these features that you find would benefit your organization. So thank you, everyone. And now we have time for questions, but I know Molly, you sent me some questions in advance. So unless there's new ones in the chat or somebody wants to come off mute, I have a couple to answer from some people I think that put some in early.
Yeah, we don't have anything in the chat right now, so maybe
Okay.
we could cover those and people might get brave enough to come off mute.
or you can put it in the chat. Don't feel like you have to come off mute. Okay, so Molly was sent some questions in advance of this presentation. So, and some of these aren't have to do necessarily with the topics I cover, but they are, I mean, right on point. So first question we got was how delivery label printing works for receiving. So is it possible to just print a delivery ticket or a delivery label instead of printing both? So I'm here to tell you, yes, it is. So, if you're not aware, I can't remember if we looked at this I don't think we did, but so in MSCM, so I'm not sure if whoever asked that question is on the call, but hopefully they'll get this recording if they're not. So under receiving and delivery, under receiving, under configuration, under both miscellaneous receipts and PO receipts, okay, so I'll go to miscellaneous receipts first right here, print delivery documents, you have the ability to determine, do you want to print the delivery label or print the delivery ticket or none, right? So here's where you can configure for miscellaneous receipts, for PO receipts. Right here, print delivery documents. Hit the little pencil icon, and I kind of similar. It looks a slightly different screen, but do you want to print the delivery label and the delivery ticket? Okay, so that is how you can adjust what you want to print. Okay. Next question we received is how to print delivery labels and then in parentheses from a Zebra printer. So I am not aware how to reprint directly on a Zebra printer, okay, if that was the question, but I can tell you how to reprint a label out of MSCM, okay? So still under receiving and delivery, under delivery, and then we have print for delivery. So here, again, depending on, which area you are trying to reprint a label for, you do have to select your company and location. Okay, you have all these parameters, right? So if you have something that you'd want to fill out here to narrow down that label that you'd like to reprint or that document that you'd like to print, you can put that here. I'm just going to click search. I got lots of things here. So let's say I find that label I want to reprint. Okay, so I click, I don't know, maybe it's this rec here. I click view and print, and I get a copy of that document. Okay, I have this action up here to print for delivery. All my information of where to deliver to. Print for delivery, and then this, I was trying this earlier and it was like slow. I had to yeah, it did this to me earlier. Let me do a hard refresh because it took a while. A nice little pop-up box comes up telling you, oh, do you want to reprint the document or the label? And which document printer, which label printer do you want? Let me just do a hard refresh of this page and get back to it. Something is caching. Okay, so receiving and delivery, print for delivery, search, roll over. Yeah, I don't know. It did that to me earlier. So this is what shows up. So it says, do you want to print the document? If you don't, just uncheck it. It's going to print to this printer. Do you want to print the label? It's going to print to this printer, right? And then you select that, and then you can do print for delivery and reprint whichever documents you were intending to print. That was a good question. Another one came in that said, I'd like to know more about using MSCM to document internal package deliveries, okay? So I covered this briefly at the beginning of the session, but to me, the two components that you would use MSCM to do that would be to start with doc logging and then move into miscellaneous receiving. So doc logging would just be used to validate, those tracking numbers or the number of packages that showed up, right? And then track those throughout the process because it'll generate that LT number. So start with doc logging, then miscellaneous receiving, because it sounds like this question was for non-PO receipts, right? And if you want to start tracking the time that it takes for your organization to have to essentially process, right, that receipt or that miscellaneous received item, that's where you would do that through the miscellaneous receiving piece of MSCM. Okay. And then you can start tracking it. How many of these miscellaneous packages are you getting? How many compared to PO packages, right? Things like that. So, and then the last question I got is, when will MSCM LPL be GA if known? And I wish I could tell, I wish I, worked for Infor and could be very confident of when it's coming out, but that is a wonderful question. I think we all know that it was set, I believe, to be released in April, and it was pushed to October, I think. So right now, I think it might be October. I haven't, heard otherwise, but as an existing client, right, you are going to have two options to move to MSCM and Landmark. You can use the DMF, which stands for Data Migration Factory tooling that moves your data from the MSCM hard-coded to Landmark, okay? Or the second option is you start from scratch. You don't bring over any historical transactions, and it's essentially almost like a net new implementation. So, and I believe Infor stated on one of their calls where they were talking about MSCM and Landmark that the DMF tooling was currently not available for April. So if I had to guess, that's probably why it might have been delayed because that's huge, right? Because a lot of existing MSCM clients are probably going to be interested in moving their data and not just leaving it behind. Okay. Also, we have a ton of October release sessions coming up, so I'm sure we're going to hear more information as that gets closer. So make sure you're subscribed to all those KBs and notifications coming out from Infor. However, I'd also like to tell everybody, if you've adopted the consolidated web apps, which I hope everybody on this call has and is practicing those and learning that new navigation, you will stumble across that new MSCM setup. It's already like available out there. You can't take action on it, but you can get an idea of like what the new setup is going to be needed, like what configurations are going to have to be done. So it is in there if you look for it in the new consolidated web app. So Infor did an amazing job presenting information about Landmark and the different paths and all that. So I would definitely recommend going back and reviewing KB articles around MSCM and Landmark because they did provide a lot of great information. So, and I'm sure more to come as they work with early adopters.
That sparked a question of how can you tell if you are on the Landmark version?
Oh, you would know. Yeah, it's not, you would have to be an early adopter. So I'm telling you, if you don't know, then you're not on it. You're on still the old, because there is a lot of new setup, new terminology that's going to be introduced. So yeah, you would have had to work with Infor to enable your tenant to be MSCM and Landmark. And once the tenant goes to Landmark, it doesn't go back, right? So there's no backwards. So you're obviously going to do this probably in a test or train or not, again, a non-prod tenant first to just make sure that migration works successfully before you push it to prod. So yeah, that's my answer. If you don't know, you're not on it. Yeah, hard coded has obviously been around for longer than, I know. MSCM, I know we are all very excited. Okay. I know that on this call, I am so excited to get away from this searching function. I'm so excited for Landmark, and I think we all are. So, but like I said, that was the whole point of this presentation, is like all this functionality will get moved to Landmark. So why delay? Use this now. Use some of these features now that they offer. Any other questions? Nobody wants to come off mute? That's okay.
That's okay.
I'm friendly.
Friday.
It's Friday, exactly.
Hi, Casey. Just a quick question. So you say these features we can test it on TRN right now?
No, you'd have to be an early adopter. So
okay,
they have clients that are early adopters. It is not GA, so it is not generally available to the Infor community yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, good question.
Okay. Well, if you guys find you have questions down the road, we always have our coffee with consultants offering, which allows you 30 minutes of complimentary time with one of our consultants to get questions answered or even help you solve a pain point. So you can go to our website and sign up for that, or you can always get in touch with me, Molly. My email is in the chat and I can get you pointed in the right direction.
Oops.
We hope you can join us. Oh, that's okay. For next, no, is it next week or 2 weeks from now? It's next week. I think it's all blending together. We have our last session in our August Informative Friday series. And that one, is that on the next slide, Casey? Yeah. So that's just some considerations to keep in mind for a successful FSM implementation. And then we will be having our next quarterly series in October. So look for that information and topics to come out in September. And then hopefully we will get a chance to see you at the next in-person Infor event, which we are attending, and that is the Western Infor user group in Washington. And either Luke or Doug will be there, so keep an eye out for them. We would love to get a chance to meet you guys in person. And that's all we have today. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Casey, for a great presentation. I will send out the recording to everybody that's registered.
Thank you all.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Casey, Molly.
Thanks.
Bye, guys. All right.
Bye, everyone.